Hey there, everyone. How's everybody doing? I know it's been quite a while since I've done one of these take-a-moments, and I'm so sorry for that. Things have been just so crazy busy for us. But yeah, I wanted to jump on here real quick and just take a moment with you guys. Something that's been stirring in my spirit just the past couple weeks especially. So many of you that I've talked to in the past month, maybe 2 months, find yourselves in this season of transition. Like it seems like so many people, seriously, I know right now it's crazy to me, the number of people that are just in transition, season of transition. And it's different for different people, right? I know some of you've sold a home and you've bought a new home and you're in that process of getting ready to move and just transitioning to a new house. Some of you, it's a relocation, like you're literally relocating someplace geographically. Others, you're changing jobs. You're in a transition of changing jobs or careers. Some of you I've talked to, you're in that transition where you've transitioned, your kids are now out of the house and, they're starting to have kids and you're a grandparent and there's this season of transition. And I know personally, our family a little over a year and a half ago went through just a radical transition. So I know what this season can be like for you, right? It's a little over a year and a half ago, we sold our farm, sold the cattle, we packed up our kids, and we uprooted ourselves from where we had grown up. We had spent our entire lives up till that point. And God had us move, 500 miles southwest to Kansas City. And so what I want to share with you guys today is like very real to me. Like this is something I've wrestled with in the process. And it's this process of not judging in the middle of your transition, not judging the fruit, the climate, not judging the outcome in the middle of a transition. And I've been tempted to do that almost daily, like over the past year and a half, like seriously. And what got me thinking about this was a while back, Emmy made a bundt cake. We were getting ready to go over to some new friends that we had met at church. We were going to go to their house for lunch, and we were going to bring the dessert, right? Emmy's got this bundt cake recipe that is just like, it's like foolproof. It's like, it never fails. It's always amazing. And it just works out every time she does it. She's just got the process figured out so beautifully. And she whipped up the cake and she threw it in the oven and she set her timer on her phone for the allotted time that it would take for that cake to bake, right? And I remember she came down into the kitchen after a while and she said, "Do you smell something burning? Like it smells like the cake is burning possibly." And everything inside of her is going, "Oh no, the cake's going to burn. It's going to affect the way that it looks. It's going to affect the way that it tastes." And everybody knows when you go over to somebody's house, especially for the first time and you just met them, you want your dessert to be like your presentation and everything to be amazing. So in that moment, Emmy was really tempted to like deviate from the course, deviate from the instructions, deviate from the plan, and just prematurely pull that cake out of the oven, thinking that was the best thing to do. And luckily she had the wisdom and the foresight to just trust the process. She had that history of making it so many times without fail, just following the directions and following the process all the way through. And the result was once again an amazing cake, and our new friends loved it and it was amazing. But I got thinking about it, and it's like I have found myself in that position so many times over the past year and a half, where I've been tempted in the midst of a transition, in the midst of God still working everything out and pulling it to the forefront, like finishing the process. I've looked at the circumstances and I've wanted to judge in that moment and be like, throw in the towel, right? Or jump out of the process. And I even got thinking about, in the Bible, Abraham and Sarah. And here we find Abraham early on. God takes him outside, right? And tells him, look up at the heavens, count the stars. And Abraham says, "I can't count them all." And he says, "I tell you the truth, that your descendants will outnumber all the stars." And, at that point, Sarah was barren. Like they didn't have any kids. They didn't have any descendants. And he receives this promise, right? Like God says, "I'm going to do this. This is where I'm taking you. You're over here barren, childless, but I'm taking you to this other place where your descendants are going to outnumber the stars," right? And I think in the midst of trying to judge in the middle of it, we're tempted, just as Abraham and Sarah, which he received the promise. Years go by and he still doesn't have a kid. And so they decide they're going to make one in their own strength. After judging the circumstances, we're even older now, God. There's no way we're going to have a kid if we wait on you. So we're just going to make this happen. And they produce an Ishmael, right? And so I think that that's just so true of us in these seasons, right? I find that in my own life, that when I'm tempted to judge in the midst of the process, in the midst of the transition, I'm really tempted then also to make an Ishmael. And I think the word in this season of transition for you and for me, especially me, is to just trust God in the process. Like, trust what he's doing. Trust that he's not finished yet. And in the midst of that transition is not the time to judge whether we're going to submit to the process or whether we're going to continue on with him. And I think it just behooves us, right, to just trust him and submit to that. Like, God desires so much for the maturation of our hearts, that we would just grow up, right? As his kids, we'd grow up into the fullness of knowing him and the fullness of being like him, and that maturation process. And part of that is walking through the transition, walking through the waiting, and not judging, and not prematurely quitting or prematurely giving up or prematurely making an Ishmael. And I just know that that's been the season I've been in, sometimes almost daily. Like, just having to remind myself of that. I can't judge off my circumstances right now. I have to trust God in that process. That Philippians 1:6, right? That says he's faithful. He who began a good work in you is faithful to bring it to completion. And so I think that's just the word for this season. For those of us that are in transition, and some of us crazy transitions, some of us maybe not so crazy transitions, but I think the word is the same. Like, do we really trust Father? Do we really trust our Papa to bring about the work that he's doing in us to completion? So I hope that encourages you. I know sometimes I just have to say it to myself. I have to remind myself to stay in the process, to stay in the transition, to trust him. And I hope that encourages you. I hope that blesses you. I love you guys so much, and I'm so excited. I seriously am. I'm so excited to see the fruit that comes out of all these transitions that everybody's on. Like, I think it'll be amazing to look back a year down the road, 2 years down the road, and seeing all that God has done. His faithfulness at work in your lives and in my life. And after submitting to the process, after sticking in there and staying in the process, getting down the road and looking back, I think that we will be so thankful that we did, right? I think that if we do that, we won't be able to even imagine the travesty or the devastation from aborting, from prematurely pulling out and quitting the process. And so, I hope it encourages you. Hope you're blessed. We love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.